November 19, 1966, Rice Stadium. Last home game for Jess Neely, retiring after 27 years as Rice head coach. Paul Orsak covers the game and recalls the Neely legacy.
Every autumn Saturday for 40 years, you have followed a squad of young athletes onto a gridiron somewhere. In an occupation where won and lost records have become overwhelmingly important, you have more than held your ground, winning 206 games while losing 175 and tying 19. Most of that record that never obsessed you, you compiled here at Rice University. In the 27 years you have been head coach and athletic director. And the players, and the students, and the fans, and the alumni all hoped this season would be your best. They and you have had to abandon that hope long before the arrival of this sparkling November afternoon. It's been a very poor season for you and the Rice Owls. But as kickoff time approaches, the feeling grows that the Owls can and must win this one from TCU. For it's their last homestand with you, Coach Jess Neely.
Dick, I guess I talked to Dr. Pitts probably 6 or 8 weeks ago. People just kept asking this, that, and the other, and I thought we might just as well get it over with.
Did this harangue you? I mean, people asking all the time?
Well, it doesn't harangue me, no, but I thought I might save them a lot of trouble. Personally, I never expected to get this far. I didn't think I'd last this long. I don't mean in football, but if I had to go back, I'm a little surprised that I'm still around at all. Not at Rice, but anywhere. So if I last out this next year, I will have, I guess I'll have to just get interested in something. I don't know exactly what.
It was the spring of 1966, right after recruiting was completed, that you made the announcement you were beginning your last season. And you said it the way you always said everything, with simple dignity and no flourishes. In that soft drawl you learned in Tennessee and never lost. You've come a long way from the little Tennessee hamlet of Smyrna. You remember it as the kind of place where one man could take the census after chores one night by riding up one side of the road and down the other. After a couple of years of high school ball and some Army time, you entered Middle Tennessee Teachers College and immediately started the headline habit you would continue for years. The transfer rules were loose enough in those days that you were able to play against Vanderbilt one Saturday and play for Vanderbilt the next. 3 years of hard-nosed football and a lot of studying gave you a reputation as a savvy football strategist and a degree in the law. The demand for coaches was greater than the demand for barristers, so you were soon coaching part-time, moving to Southwestern University at Memphis, then to Alabama as an assistant to the great Wallace Wade in 1931, and then to the head coaching job at Clemson College.
When I first started, I had no idea of continuing in coaching. You know, as I've quite often said, I took it because the man I was working for was chairman of the board of trustees at a high school, and he asked me if I would coach the high school team. Well, I was working for the man, you see, and I told him at the time, well, if you would like me to coach football, I'd be glad to do it. So he let me off from work every afternoon, and I went to the football field.
You've had your share of setbacks along the way, and you have another one when the TCU Frogs score the first touchdown in the first quarter of your last home game. TCU tries the middle of your defensive line, but your secondary is there to meet the play. The defensive unit seems to play inspired football. They want you to go out a winner. Then the Owls play opportunists and recover a TCU fumble. Quarterback Robert Haley, playing with a bad right knee, then drops back to pass. He spots Glenn Hine in the end zone. And the Owls are on the scoreboard. But there are anxious moments. Richard Parker's point-after-touchdown kick goes wide to the right. TCU leads 7-6. The Horned Frogs then take the Rice kickoff and run it back to their own 36-yard line. Once more, the Rice defensive wall stops the white-shirted Frogs. You've said it all year. This team had more determination, more guts than any other squad you've had in the past. Defensive end Tommy Tyner breaks through to block a Larry Peel pass. And then, with Donnie Gibbs back to kick for TCU, Gene Aldridge blocks the punt, and Harlan Deering scoops it up and runs for a touchdown. Sophomore Robbie Shelton, also hurting with a wrenched knee, then skirts right end and just barely gets into the end zone for the two-point conversion. Rice is in the driver's seat, 14-7. Your squad plays in a fine stadium that seats 70,000 fans, and they have the finest uniforms and equipment that money can buy. But you can remember when, back at Clemson, you and the players didn't have it so good.
People don't realize what we had to do in those days. You won't believe this, but when I went to Clemson, we didn't have a penny. And I mean, one red copper cent. We were in the red, and our first job was to try to get enough money to really clothe the boys, get them out on the field where they looked decently. And I remember I asked Coach Wade one time, he was going to Atlanta from Durham, to stop by. I'd like for him to see us work out. And after the workout, I said, well, Coach, what do you think about the boys? He said, Jess, they're so ragged I can't tell. And he was telling the truth. You know, the coaches there used to get together and really sew up sweatshirts and things to get these boys out.
Now the Owls again are moving the ball. This is more like it. This is more like the great Clemson team you took to the Cotton Bowl back in 1940 to meet Frank Leahy's aggregation from Boston College. It was the game that got you your next and last job. Clemson won that Cotton Bowl game 6-3, and it was your last appearance with the Tigers. Rice was looking for a head coach to take over from Jimmy Kitts, and Rice had its eye on you. Neil Masterson Jr. already had done some preliminary work, and the 1940 Cotton Bowl game convinced him and Rice business manager Gaylord Johnson that you were the man for the job.
He was interested, and he was bringing his team to the Cotton Bowl, so I set up an appointment to talk talked to him when we got there. So Gaylord Johnson and I went up to Dallas before the Cotton Bowl and arranged for him to come down to Rice and talk to him. And I'll never forget, Gaylord got hold of Mr. McCants on the phone after we talked to him, and we'd been talking about hiring him for less than Jimmy Kiss. He said, Mr. McCants, he said he wouldn't consider coming for less than $10,000, and the way he looked, I think he meant it. So he came on down, and after much misgiving both ways, why, he finally lit here, and he's been here ever since.
You have an 11-point advantage going into the second half, but you never relax. You follow every play, roaming the sideline, congratulating and encouraging your players. You're dressed, as always, in street clothes and a felt hat, like the businessman you are. Never forgetting that, for you and Rice, football is a business, but careful always to see that it doesn't become a business with the players. Your philosophy is unusual in an age of high-pressure recruiting and cutthroat competition.
I'd be the biggest liar in the world if I said I didn't want to win, because I do. But I don't think there's a coach living whose real satisfaction doesn't come from seeing what his boys develop into after they leave the school. If they lose sight of the fact that their first objective to that boy is to see that he get an education, then the football's in the wrong place. Football must always be kept secondary to the boys getting an education. And if we do that and do everything we can to see that he leaves with a degree, then I think it's a fine thing for him to participate. You can't eat that football 4 years after it's over. I don't know how many times I've told our boys that when you get out of here, people forget how many long runs you made and how many blocks and tackles you made and whatever you did. But they want to know, did you have enough in you to finish what you started, which was your education, and leave with a degree? If you did that, then you're going to be accepted, and of course it's up to the individual then as to what he does. But I think athletics gives you entree to almost any office in this city. Now it's up to you after you get in there to be able to deliver the goods.
Your teams have not always been the best, but they have always been in the game till the final whistle, and they have seldom been really bad. You give the credit to the players you have coached, and there have been some great ones. And some of the greatest are here in the stands as usual to see your Owls take the measure of TCU's Horned Frogs. There's Weldon Humble. He first came to Rice the same season you did. His football career was interrupted by World War II, but he came back to make All-American and the Football Hall of Fame. Wearing jersey number 60 and playing guard, Weldon Humble was the star performer in the 1947 Orange Bowl game against Tennessee. For performances against Texas and Texas A&M, Humble was named College Football Lineman of the Week. A Rice fan for life, he's also one of your biggest fans.
I definitely remember many occasions where he has told his players that they were there for an education primarily, and to play football too, but most of all their education came first, and he was the type of coach that kept up with the boys and their education. In other words, he would get weekly or monthly reports on how they were progressing with their classwork, and if you were down, well, you heard from him, and you counseled with him. So he was definitely interested in boy getting his education.
By By 1949, your Rice Owls were a force to be reckoned with, and they had staked their first clear claim to the Southwest Conference Championship. And the man of the hour in '49 was James Froggy Williams. A lanky end wearing number 84, Froggy is best remembered for his effort in the University of Texas game. On a wet afternoon in Memorial Stadium in Austin. Froggy intercepted a key Longhorn pass. And in the closing minutes of the contest, with less than 14 seconds on the clock, booted a field goal that gave your Owls a 17-15 victory. And they went on from there to beat North Carolina in the 1950 Cotton Bowl game. This is what Froggy Williams remembers best about his coach.
Coach Neely, as our most successful coaches, is, of course, a rather stern disciplinarian. I don't think there's any other way that a coach can be successful without that discipline that has to be instilled in the athletic teams of all kinds, not just football, of course. But we used to wonder how he could be so tough and yet at times be quite human in other ways. And, of course, I think probably to really appreciate Coach Neely, you have to be a little older and a little more mature, as I am now, and can really appreciate the fine points of this man.
They're a loyal crew, these Rice Stars you have coached. Also in the stands is the man who never sent the fans home without a thrill. Wriggling Dickie Magle, number 47, still wriggling as he watches your 1966 squad outclass the Frogs. Magle joined the ranks of the football immortals during the 1954 Cotton Bowl game with the help of Alabama's Dickie Lewis. Nobody else could stop the elusive Rice scat back. Lewis stood it as long as he could, and then he charged in and knocked Magle head over heels. But the excited Alabama man came off the bench to make the tackle. It didn't count, and Magle got another touchdown. Coaches, sports writers, and fans unanimously respect the achievements of Dickie Magle. And Dickie Magle gives much of the credit to you.
If I could some way backtrack as far as his age was concerned, I'd like to have my two young boys to have had the opportunity to have played under such a fine coach as Neely, because his morals and principles are just of the highest. And in the 4 years that I played under Mr. Neely, I never heard him ever say a curse word. And that's pretty good considering the fact that he has some pretty hot times with the officials, and the people are down on you at times when you're not winning. But we were winning when I was in school, and he never yelled at the boys, and he never hollered at them, but he was real firm. And if you couldn't do the job, then you didn't play.
I don't think I'd ever want to pick an all-star team of our own boys, because some of them have been more fortunate than others playing on a good team. Of course, you get more recognition. We've had some real fine players that did not play on a good team.
Many of the players from previous teams make it to the Rice games regularly. But one fan you can count on being there always is the stylish matron in the lower west stands, who's been Mrs. Jess Neely since 1931. And another thing you can be certain of in this uncertain world, Joe Davis will be there to do anything that needs doing, as he has been since you were youngsters together in Tennessee. Your assistant coach has a gruff-looking exterior, and he doesn't say much about ordinary subjects. But to Joe Davis, coach, you are no ordinary subject.
He's a good leader. He knows football. He's a good handler of men. He knows a lot about handling different individuals. Everyone is a different personality. And that's the thing I think the head coach has to be able to realize, and know how to get the best out of it.
It wasn't your best season, But in your last home game, the TCU Frogs never recovered from the first half beating your Owls gave them. And you've got a 21-10 moral victory for your final home game.
Well, they kept announcing doing the
Ladies, you fumble around. You went right at home. You fumble around.
What page? Page 9. You had a real good day today.
We're going to miss you around here. Well, thank you.
You'll still be around.
I kind of miss being around.
Congratulations on the job. Ready to go?
What about boys? You know, that's what I was understanding.
Grantland Rice said it a long time ago. When the great scorer comes to write your name in the good book, he writes not that you won or lost, but how you played the game. And nobody ever played it better, Coach Neely.